Michael. How's it going?
Not too good, man. I'm having some lady issues over here.
Let me hear it, man.
Well, see, I like this girl and she likes me, but our families just don't seem to get along.
Sounds a lot like my college English project on Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare.
That sounds pretty interesting. Let me tell me a little bit more about William Shakespeare and why he wrote that play.
All right, sounds good. William Shakespeare is considered the greatest English-speaking writer in history and known as England's national poet from 1564 to 1616. He has had more theatrical works performed than any other playwright in history. To this day, countless theater festivals around the world honor his work. Students memorize his eloquent poems, and scholars reinterpret the million words of text he composed. William was born on April 23, 1564, in Stratford-upon-Avon, to a family of modest means in Elizabethan England.
He was also known as the Bard of Avon, and he wrote at least 37 plays and a collection of sonnets, established the legendary Globe Theatre, and helped transform the English language. Shakespeare died from unknown causes at the age of 52 on his birthday. Some say that only the greatest of people die on their birthday, symbolizing a true circle of life. Shakespeare was the greatest inventor of words in English or in any language. He coined roughly 1,700 English words. William Shakespeare lived an extraordinary life and has had an immense impact on all our world today.
In Act 2, Scene 2, we will be performing the balcony scene between Romeo and Juliet.
So why did he write this play?
Well, let's look it up here. Well, it says here that the play was written about 1594 to 1596. His reasoning for writing this playwright is unknown, but many believe that it was inspired by an earlier version written in Italy. A man named Arthur Brooke later translated and entitled it The Tragical History of Romeo and Juliet in 1562.
Oh, yeah, it says here that many critics believe it was originally intended to be a comedy, but Shakespeare decided to portray it as a tragedy instead.
Yeah, William Shakespeare was a weird dude.
Well, that didn't really help with my problem, so tell me a little bit more about the characters.
Well, Michael, here are some of the main characters. Romeo is part of the Montague family. He is deeply in love with Juliet, but the Capulets despise the Montagues because of an ancient grudge. Juliet is the only daughter of the patriarch of the house of Capulet and falls in love with Romeo. Mercutio, he is Romeo's best friend, is neither a Montague or a Capulet. He is very loyal, devoted, funny, and witty. Benvolio is the stabilizing character between the mishmash of all the other unsettled characters. He is a good friend and cousin to Romeo.
Enough of the Shakespeare rubbish. Let's look into the plot overview of this play you're talking about. Maybe it will help me with a little bit of guidance for my current situation.
Well, the play starts in the streets of Verona, where another brawl breaks out between the servants of the feuding noble families of Capulet and Montague. Benvolio, a Montague, tries to stop the fighting, but is attacked when the evil Capulet Tybalt arrives on the scene.
Citizens are outraged by the constant violence, and they beat back their warring factions.
Prince Aeschylus, the ruler of Verona, attempts to prevent any further conflicts between the families by threatening death for any individual who disturbs the peace in the future.
Romeo, the son of Montague, runs into his cousin Benvolio. After some interrogation by Benvolio, Romeo confides that he is in love with Rosaline, a woman who does not return his affections.
Benvolio tells him to forget this woman and find another, more beautiful woman, but Romeo remains depressed.
Meanwhile, Paris, a kinsman of the prince, seeks Juliet's hand in marriage. Her father, Capulet, asks Paris to wait 2 years since Juliet is not even 14.
Capulet dispatches a servant with a list of people to invite to a masquerade and feast he traditionally holds. He invites Paris to the feast, hoping that Paris will begin to win Juliet's heart.
Romeo and Benvolio, still discussing Rosaline, encounter the Capulet servant bearing the list of invitations. Benvolio suggests that they attend, since that will allow Romeo to compare his beloved to other women of Verona.
Romeo agrees to go with Benvolio to the feast, but only because Rosaline, whose name he reads on the list, will be there. In Capulet's household, young Juliet talks with her mother, Lady Capulet, and her nurse about the possibility of marrying Paris.
Juliet has not yet considered marriage, but agrees to look at Paris during the feast to see if she could even fall in love with him. And then the feast begins.
Romeo follows Benvolio and their friend Mercutio to the Capulet's house. Once inside, Romeo sees Juliet from a distance and instantly falls in love with her. He forgets about Rosaline completely.
Romeo watches Juliet. Tybalt recognizes him and is enraged that a Montague would sneak into the Capulet feast. He prepares to attack, but Capulet holds him back.
Soon, Romeo speaks to Juliet, and the two experience a profound attraction. They kiss, not even knowing each other's names. When he finds out from Juliet's nurse that she is a daughter of a Capulet, his family's enemy, he becomes distraught.
When Juliet learns that the young man she had just kissed is the son of Montague, she grows equally upset. As Mercutio and Benvolio leave the Capulet estate, Romeo leaps over the orchard wall into the garden, unable to leave Juliet behind.
From his hiding place, he sees Juliet in a window above the orchard and hears her speak his name. He calls out to her, and they exchange vows of love.
O Romeo, where art thou, Romeo? Deny thy father and refuse thy name? Or if thou wilt not, but be sworn my love, and I'll no longer be a Capulet.
Shall I hear more, or shall I speak at this?
'Tis but thy name that is my enemy. Thou art thyself, thou not a Montague. What's a Montague? It is nor hand nor foot, no arm nor face, nor any other part belonging to man. Or be some other name. What's in a name? That which we call a rose, by any other name, would smell as sweet. Oh, so Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes, without that title. Romeo, doff thy name, add for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself.
I take thee at thy word. Call me but love, and I'll be new baptized. Henceforth, I never will be Romeo.
Oh. What man art thou, that be screened at night, so stumblest upon my counsel?
By a name I know not how to tell thee who I am. My name, dear saint, is hateful to myself, because it is an enemy to thee. Had I written, I would tear the word.
My ears have not yet drunk 100 words of that tongue's utterance, yet I know the sound. Art thou not Romeo and a Montague?
Neither, fair saint, if either thee dislike.
How canst thou hither? Tell me, and wherefore? The orchard walls are high and hard to climb, and the place death, considering who thou art, and any of my kinsmen find thee here.
With love's light wings did I overperch these walls, for stony limits cannot hold love out. And what love can do that dares love attempt? Therefore thy kinsmen are no let to me.
If they do see thee, they'll murder thee.
Alack, there lies more peril in thine eye than 20 of their swords. Look thou but sweet, and I am proof against their enmity. Romeo hurries to see his friend and confessor, Friar Lawrence, who is shocked at the sudden turn of Romeo's heart.
The following day, Romeo and Juliet meet at Friar Lawrence's cell and are married.
Romeo begs the Capulet to hold off the duel until he understands why Romeo does not want to fight.
Disgusted with this plea for peace, Mercutio says that he will fight Tybalt himself. The two begin to duel.
Romeo flees from the scene. Soon after, the prince declares him forever banished from Verona for his crime.
Romeo sneaks into Juliet's room one night, and at last they consummate their marriage and their love.
Right before her wedding to Paris, Juliet must drink a potion that will make her appear to be dead. After she is laid to rest in the family's crypt, the friar and Romeo will secretly retrieve her, and she will be free to live with Romeo, away from their parents' feuding.
That night, Juliet drinks the potion, and the nurse discovers her, apparently dead, the next morning.
Friar Lawrence's message explaining the plan to Romeo never reaches him.
Romeo learns only of Juliet's death and decides to kill himself rather than live without her. He buys a vial of poison from a reluctant apothecary, then speeds back to Verona to take his own life at Juliet's tomb.
Inside the Capulet crypt, Romeo comes upon Paris, who is scattering flowers on Juliet's grave. They fight, and Romeo kills Paris. He enters the tomb, sees Juliet's inanimate body, drinks the poison, and dies by her side.
Just then, Friar Lawrence enters and realizes that Romeo has killed Paris and himself. At the same time, Juliet awakes.
Juliet sees her beloved Romeo and realizes he has killed himself with poison. She kisses his poisoned lips, and when that does not kill her, buries his dagger in her chest, falling dead upon his body.
Seeing their children's bodies, Capulet and Montague agree to end their long-standing feud and to raise gold statues of their children side by side in newly peaceful Verona.
No, I think that love is the most important theme in this play because it shows how Romeo and Juliet love each other so much that they take their own lives after they find out that the other one is dead.
Yeah, that's very true. This scene really proves how strong love can be. They were disobeying their families and wishes, and when it comes to love, they overcome their families' differences, and they do whatever they really can to be happy. So
yeah. All right. It says here by Kelvin Odubo on New Times Book Reviews that Romeo and Juliet has been referred to as the greatest love story of all time, or perhaps the most tragic. Shakespeare employs several dramatic techniques that have garnered praise from critics, most notably the abrupt shifts from comedy to tragedy, which points to how good a book can turn out after centuries of being authored. So, what do you think of this play?
I thought it was pretty good, considering how long ago it was written. It definitely portrays how strong love can be, which I previously stated.
Yeah, I think that is interesting how William Shakespeare began writing it as a love story and turned it into a tragedy instead. And this play is definitely one of the best playwrights that I've read by William Shakespeare.
Yeah, for sure. So, did learning about William Shakespeare and Romeo and Juliet help you with your lady issues?
You know what? I think it did. I think I'm just going to go against my parents' beliefs and try to find happiness and not let it end in a tragedy like with Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, you do you, man. You do you.
All right, thank you.
Hey, Michael. How's it going?
Hey, not good, man. Not good.
Greasy scoop.
Dude, that's horrible.
Is it on? Come back in.
Oh, your flash is on.
Yeah, I know it is, because it's dark. Turn it off.
3. Oh, wait, okay. Gonna go, Ricky?
Yeah, just
We'll edit it out.
neither, fair saint. If either, I dislike.